Connor, Fort Bragg. I saw Pete Hegseth doing push-ups outside. What the hell's going on? That guy's he's a gangster, bro.
Yeah.
Stud.
So this happened a little bit earlier this week, but I chose to save it today so we could have Vinny back on because I know you are one of the only ones among us who actually served in the military. So your input on this would be very useful. But on Monday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth changed the name of Fort Liberty, formerly Fort Bragg, North Carolina, back to its original name. Here's a video of him signing those documents.
Nice. Look at Pete.
Hey.
There it is. Pursuant to the authority of the Secretary of Defense, Title 10, United States Code, Section 113, I direct the Army to change the name of Fort Liberty, North Carolina to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. That's right. Bragg is back.
Could I ask you a question, Connor? What year and what was the reason that it went from Bragg to Liberty?
Well, I will explain that.
Thank you.
Of course. I brought facts and figures. That's why I have my computer today. So Fort Bragg was established in 1918 as an artillery base and then eventually grew into one of the largest military bases in the world by total number of people. It has over 52,000 service members who are stationed there. Every member of my family that's been in the military has rotated through Fort Bragg at some point.
I've been there.
Yeah, and it's home to the Army's 82nd Airborne Division, as well as the Army's Special Operations Command and many other things. But there was one major problem about the base.
What?
It was named after Civil War General Braxton Bragg, who fought for the Confederacy. If you're familiar with Southern military bases and how they name these things, this is General Braxton Bragg.
Look at that guy.
They named a lot of military bases in the South after Confederate generals during World War I and World War II because the U.S. government was trying to mend fences with southern states, descendants of the Confederates who still harbored hostility towards the federal government. And they said they would name those bases after those people to try to get them to enlist in the military because, turns out Southern guys are the ones who are most likely to go enlist in the military to go die for the government.
Honorary, it was more marketing.
Yes, it was a marketing decision. And you'll see the consequences of that. But from 1918 to the 2023, it was Fort Bragg.
Okay.
Everyone who ever went there referred to it as Fort Bragg. They all knew it was Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
But then the Biden administration, in the wake of the death of George Floyd, created a commission to start renaming everything that had anything to do with the Confederates. It's actually the most insane name I've ever seen.
It's like you're changing history. It's just history.
That resonates with people.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I was at Fort Bragg.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, all the history, but like you can't, like changing a statue or changing the name. The history still is what the hell it is. It's just it should remind people where we came from. What the hell? That's the biggest waste of time for me.
Well, they hate America. So.
Yeah,
of course.
Well,
they don't like our history, but it is what it is.
This is the name of the commission to change all these names. Most insane name I've ever heard. The Commission on the Naming of Items of the Department of Defense that commemorate the Confederate States of America or any person who served voluntarily with the Confederate States of America.
Rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah. It's so catchy, isn't it?
I'm going to have a T-shirt made like that.
Yes. So we actually have a list of all the names that they changed here because it's not just Fort Bragg. They also did Fort Benning, which is now Fort Moore. If you guys have ever seen the movie We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson, the guy who Mel Gibson plays, General Hal Moore, was the namesake of this new fort. Fort Liberty is the only one that was named not after a person. Everything else was named after, a different figure who did not have the problematic connection with the Confederates. So Fort Eisenhower, formerly Fort Gordon, Fort Walker, formerly Fort A.P. Hill. You can see what they were doing.
Oh my God.
Everything that was named after a Confederate was changed. So Pete Hegseth has now switched it back. But there's a catch because it's not the same Bragg that it was originally named after.
Bragg.
It's a different Bragg. Like I said, it's not Confederate General Braxton Bragg anymore. It's this guy, Private First Class Roland L. Bragg, who was a World War II hero.
No relation.
No relation. Although he did work out of Fort Bragg at one point and did some training there.
That's kind of smart.
Yeah. But here's what I find very interesting, actually, about this guy, because nobody had ever really heard of him, but they dug through it. And you can tell they went looking for another guy with the last
Of
name
course,
Bragg
of
to put it
course.
back, but like
Yeah, it's
well,
like Saving Private
it's not
Ryan. They're
all the way
looking for
back.
him in the freaking
Exactly.
sticks.
So he was a guy who was born in Maine in 1923, was assigned to the 513th Parachute Infantry Regiment, according to Department of Defense records. He was stationed at Fort Bragg during World War II and ended up fighting in Europe. He earned a Silver Star for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity. Geez, even I can't pronounce
Yeah, it's a good one.
intrepidity.
Damn.
And earned Purple Heart for words sustained during the Battle of the Bulge. Here's what I found really interesting, though. In his obituary, his daughter records that he was briefly captured by the Germans, but was released because his German captor recognized that they were both Freemasons.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
paid off, huh?
Very,
Everywhere.
very odd. But this thing seems like it played out like a movie.
Yeah.
He was captured with a wounded soldier. They were in an ambulance. The German guy recognized him as Masons. Like, all right, hit me over the head so it looks like there was a struggle, and then you can take the ambulance and get out of
wow.
there. He's got the wounded guy trying to drive back towards friendly lines. He's taking incoming fire from both sides because the Germans know he stole the ambulance. The Allies think it's a German vehicle.
Oh, man.
Crazy. So clearly this guy was a hero, and the Freemason connection was a little bit weird. But
Crazy that transcends war. Like the connection of Freemasons
Yeah.
is more important than the countries going at war.
you would think that they'd put that aside, but no. Apparently, they're secret handshakes and rings and whatever else the Masons have going on. They,
So now
Still hold power.
Fort Bragg is worshiping Freemasons now.
yeah. So this is where I want to get your thoughts. Like,
Go ahead.
do you agree with the name change? Do you agree with what the Biden administration did? Should we have anything named after Confederates anymore? What do you guys think? And Vinny, yeah, start with you.
my point, Connor, like my stance is this, bro. Everything that is, leave it the hell alone. Moving forward, nobody's gonna call anything something that's a negative because you already know the society that we live in right now. This is history. This is what these places were named for a reason in the time that they were in. Leave it alone because then people are gonna ask the questions like Fort Bragg. Okay, Bragg, who named? Oh, he was Confederate. Oh, okay. Give me the history. What was the battles that he fought? Do all this stuff. And then because now you have to say, oh, and then Biden changed it, and then we changed it, but then now it's not the same. It's like, what? There's more important stuff to be doing. And I get it because now Pete Hegseth, I think, again, this is still a waste of time. I wouldn't have made a spectacle. I know he has to write it and show the undoing. But it's like, bro, this is the Secretary of Defense. There's a lot other stuff that's happening defense-wise for the freaking country and abroad. I think, okay, it's cool that it's a different Bragg and whatever, but come on. Leave everything the hell alone.
In my opinion, though, it's an important cultural thing for the military. I mean, like you could speak better on this than me, but this is the most common base that the military people have served at. This is like where you go to basic training, so everybody knows it as Fort Bragg, Fort Liberty. Like that doesn't resonate with anybody, but I think it was like a creative way to do it to find a war hero from World War II instead of the Confederate guy. But yeah, no, changing things is a bad thing for culture and a bad thing for like how things resonate with you. Like, don't be ashamed of your history because that's like the demoralization of a society. Like, if you keep changing the names of things, then you don't have a national identity.
Yeah, and I want to address what is likely going to be the immediate criticism of how can you say stop changing the names of things and then be okay with Trump changing Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America, or the left is trying to throw out the talking point of we had Mount Denali in Alaska and then it was Mount McKinley and then we switched it back to Denali for
But the Native Americans named it Denali, right?
Yeah.
So that was their
exactly.
name. Yeah.
You can change the
Or the
names of
Indians, I
things
should
without
say.
too much problem, but it's the motivation for why you're doing it that also needs to be addressed, because the reason they changed the names of these forts was out of deliberate malice. And as Rob hinted at before, the reason they named them that in the first place was a marketing effort to try to get Southern guys to go enlist in the military during the World Wars.
Yeah, but them changing the names of things like Mount Denali to or Mount McKinley and Mount Denali is like trying to make like the thing in Australia where they're trying to make it feel like we don't rightfully own this country. Like they're trying to make it like we stole it from somebody or something. But that's not the case. Like this is like we should be proud that we took America.
Oh, yeah. What do you say, Rob?
I don't think we should rewrite history.
No.
So I think if we name it, it sucks. Yeah, hey, turns out, but we should just say that. It was a marketing ploy. We weren't in support of the Confederacy. We were just trying to make our army better. I know that this is off topic, but I would love to see Trump added to Mount Rushmore. I know that sounds ridiculous, but when people put it on Facebook or Twitter, I'm like, you know what? That looks like it fits, and you know what? I wish someone would come in and authorize the funding for that, I'll go to see it. When
I
it
would,
get built.
and great point, because you know what? They're not taking nothing down. They're not deleting stuff.
Adding
They're
to it.
adding to it.
Make America
Bro,
great again. Make Mount
but- and
Rushmore great
you,
again.
You know what though? You know how many people, how many TDS Roosevelt Down would be up there and they'd be
so fun.
falling off.
Hey, but speaking of
I hate him. Ah!
Who's
Maybe
on-
just a dead body?
Who's
pool.
on it right now, by the way?
Washington, Lincoln,
Good.
Roosevelt, and Jefferson.
Jefferson.
Which Roosevelt?
Jefferson owned slaves and didn't he have sex with them?
Yeah.
You're telling
No.
me Trump can't
Get
get
him out
one
of there.
and
Get him out
Jefferson
of there.
can?
Yeah. Well, he did write the various founding documents.
Yeah, and Trump renamed Gulf of Mexico Gulf of America.
Get
We're
him
great
up there.
again.
Yeah.
I'm
Get him
not-
up there.
We need to make a go petition.
I'm
How
gonna
do we
do it.
do
I'm
that?
gonna do it.
I'd say
No,
with the
no,
Mount-
yeah, I was gonna say, like of all four, say you can only fit 4 presidents on there. I think by process of elimination, if you have to get rid of one of them, it's got to be Lincoln. I think in terms
No,
of like,
screw
who
Roosevelt.
did more. He did a lot more than you'd expect. Like Trump is
I
right up there.
agree with Brandon.
Yeah.
Screw Roosevelt.
Roosevelt?
Yeah.
Why?
He wore glasses.
He's like, what do you?
Dork.
What do you do that was so great? And he was like, he was really closely connected with the bankers and everything like that. Like he ran in the election with Woodrow Wilson to sabotage Taft so that Wilson could get elected, and Wilson screwed everything up. So yeah, screw Wilson. Or
Well,
screw-
what's great is we're not taking anyone off. We're just adding Trump on, or we just reshape them all to
and,
be
and
Trump.
the other thing,
Different Trumps.
and the other thing, it's terrible real estate. Who goes to South Dakota anyways? You
Only
know?
to see Mount Rushmore.
Oh, that's the only
I,
reason.
I would go. Would you guys have it? Nobody
Yeah.
here's
I
been?
would go on the
No.
1,000.
Have you
What do
been?
No, I've never been there.
Have you been?
field trip?
Have you
Road
been?
trip.
Yeah.
Road trip.
Let's
Okay,
go.
just me.
Yeah,
Live podcast from. dude,
You ever see the
It's
weird
way
things
too
around
suggestive.
it?
forget about it.
that?
You ever see the thing with like the weird noises around it? Like,
No.
like there's like,
Steve C in chat said Mount Trumpmore.
I like that.
we can
Steve,
have-
I love it.
Look, I have an idea here. Mega Mount. All right.
MAGA
We
Mount.
put Trump, RFK, Tulsi, all of them that made the country different.
Mount MAGA.
Yeah, Mount MAGA. That's a great
only if
name.
you promise to steal it from an Indian
could be a
tribe. Otherwise,
Trump
I'm not
theme.
interested.
Hey,
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
but names are silly. Like, I mean, I
Dave
love,
Knight. Well,
love
I have to
history.
correct. I have to correct. Dave Knight said he said it first. I'm just saying, but go ahead.
Yeah, come on, let's number things. Numbers don't offend anyone. Just numbering. You know.
I'm just like you said. Just leave history the hell alone. Moving forward, build whatever you want to build, make statues and all that stuff, but just leave it alone. And I'm 100% pro Donald Trump, bro. This 4 years, you're gonna see, bro. He's going down.
You know how
as the-
lit Donald Trump's library is gonna be?
Oh
You think
my
they're gonna have books there for nerds?
no.
It's gonna be VHS tapes
Oh.
of the best '80s
Of
movies.
just- oh.
Like, oh my god, it's gonna be so good.
I can't wait.
Yeah,
Like,
but speaking of the statue thing, like you mentioned, of tearing things down and leaving history untouched, I want to do a real quick walk back through history of some of the craziest things we saw during the movement to rename and tear down everything resembling the Confederacy. This is the most important one here: the Charlottesville, Virginia Robert E. Lee statue. This is the one at the center of the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally, where they clashed with counter-protesters. The one guy drove his car into the crowd.
Yeah.
It's where the Trump very fine people hoax came from, where
Yep.
they said he called white supremacists very fine people. Absolutely did not happen.
Yeah, they edited the tape.
Exactly. And the fact that it's still publicly available and no one bothers to
Did you
correct
put the
themselves-
video there when
I
they
did.
melted?
I
Okay.
did. In 2023, that statue was taken down, torn to pieces, and burned to a crisp.
Wow.
So look at this. And I just, but before you play it, I have a framed picture of the statue being melted in my office because of the powerful symbolism here. And I think it's really important that you actually pay attention because, we don't put ritualistic symbolism on statues anymore. And we think we're above that. But like if you were at the, the Lincoln Memorial in DC and you saw somebody just take a piss on it,
I punch him in the face.
exactly. Because we believe that statues symbolize things, even if we don't, worship them as idols.
Yeah.
This meant something. And just watch the symbolism in the presentation here.
Okay.
They chopped off its face with a blowtorch. And then if you quickly go to the next video,
Oh, that's real.
yeah, that was the head of
crazy.
it.
That's
they took the
crazy.
face and they just melted it
Like,
down
all that
in a
work. Like
crucible.
all that work. Like
Yeah.
What a bunch of losers, bro. Like you have
And
nothing better to do.
The way they did this was crazy because I have the quotes from the people who were there. This whole thing was done as part of a ceremony by a local organization. They invited people, but you had to disable location services on your phone, so nobody knew where it happened. So
Wow.
nobody could show up to protest. And they quipped as they were, throwing it into the fire. The person who organized that whole event said this was like euthanizing a rabid dog. The act of myth-making that has occurred around Robert E. Lee, removing his face is emblematic of the kind of removal of that kind of myth. And then as they burn the statue, well, they can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again now. There's no tape that can fix that. And then shortly after, the grave of Robert E. Lee's horse was desecrated too. I don't know if you guys knew that. It was Traveler was his horse. It was buried at Washington and Lee University near the stables. People used to go and leave apples and stuff. It was just like a little local attraction. They chiseled that up, desecrated it, and threw it out.
People have nothing better to do with their lives, and a lot of these people have no jobs If
Because
that's what you're doing,
they won't stop beating a dead horse.
literally, figuratively, all above, just dumbass people, bro. Like they got nothing better to do. Imagine what'd you do today, dude? Robert E. Lee, remember that guy? Like, yeah. Remember his horse? No. Well, guess what? I went to his freaking grave.
Yeah, it's a
go
lack
get a
of
job, dude.
lack of actual problems.
Yeah, no, exactly. You have to create them.
Yeah.
You have to create problems, and there aren't any fucking problems.
Is it worth erecting a new statue?
I would argue on that particular one, yes. And I know that it's a very contentious subject that even divided the right for a very long time of, do you leave Robert E. Lee statues up? This is a guy who led the army that fought against the Union. But study history for longer than 5 minutes and raise yourself above the 8th grade history class that they taught you, and you'll realize that Robert E. Lee was actually one of the finest examples of an honorable American leader that we've ever had. And then he chose his state over the Union, which was a perfectly valid political position to have at that time. And he chose to do that because your state was more important than your country at that point. So for people to say, oh, you some kind of traitor who does not deserve to be remembered, that's not actually correct. And I can be open to the debate of, like, should there be so many things named after Confederate generals? But as we talked about, they did that for a reason. It was to make peace with the southern states during world wars to get them to enlist in the military. It was supposed to be an act of goodwill that they immediately stripped away all these years later as part of a humiliation ritual for those same people, which is probably why the military is so shorthanded now.
Yep.
You want to hear some tea about the Civil War?
Oh, absolutely.
I love tea.
So,
I'm sweating, by the way.
I love the Civil War.
I love
This is an
I
exciting
just love wars.
segment.
Yeah, I love wars. I want to do one of those Civil War reenactments.
Oh, we should go.
There's one coming. There's a Renaissance fair, but I want to show up there and just start like, yeah, with big guns.
You know how much
My
content
mom
we'll
went.
get out of that?
Huh?
Vinny, people in costume everywhere. You know how many...
Let's go. I'm going, and we're going to show the audience.
It would be a gold mine.
We
Let's
do
go.
it July. My mom took my son to Gettysburg on July 4th
Ooh.
weekend,
Oh, she
and
did.
it's
I went to go with
amazing.
her.
We should go.
I wanna-
Another road trip.
I wanna
We'll
go
there.
there.
Then we'll go to Mount
Yes,
Rushmore.
we'll live stream.
I heard a lot
Those
of
are
people say
very
that they
far
get like a
apart.
dark creepy feeling if they go to Gettysburg. Have you ever heard that?
You know a lot of weird things about all the weird places I know things about. We should talk about that privately.
Yeah,
I'm
but
gonna
quick
ask-
tea about the Civil War though. So it had nothing to do with slavery at first. Lincoln was having a difficult time recruiting people from the North to go against the South, so he made it about slavery. At first, like the Gangs New York movie, that's about like how there were giant protests, and he like suspended civil rights so that the army could like take out people who were protesting the war and stuff. Like he's having a real hard time recruiting people.
Wow.
Yeah, part of why
Yeah.
I say you could realistically take Lincoln off Mount Rushmore to replace him with Trump is because by every conceivable definition, if it took place in any other country, you'd call Abraham Lincoln a tyrant. Someone who imprisons journalists, suspends the right of habeas corpus, implements massive property confiscation, deploys the military against citizens of his own country, locks up political dissidents, forcibly conscripts people into the army. Like, these are all things that Lincoln did.
I'm so
And the
happy.
Rothschilds started the whole divide between the North and the South too.
Oh, dude, I'm so happy that we're getting rid of pennies then.
Yes.
Oh, pennies are gone, and so is his face that's on it.
And paper
Is his face
straws.
on it?
Yes.
Penny-
Lincoln's
and-
on the penny?
and
But
the
you-
5.
Yeah, but you know what's hilarious? During this whole madness of where they were changing all the names of things, they took Abraham Lincoln's name off a school in California because, and I quote, he did not do enough to show that Black Lives mattered to him.
Well, you're joking.
Dead
Oh
serious.
my
The guy
God.
who implemented the Emancipation Proclamation did not do enough to show that Black Lives mattered. So, you know what? There's no winning with these people. So, frankly, Pete Hegseth should have just gone back and made it for Braxton Bragg again.
I would have gone back to the original. I wouldn't.
Roland Bragg seems cool, but Braxton Bragg all the way.
Oh,
And that does it for me.
Hey, good
Maybe
guys.
we'll get the names of the forts back, and maybe the South will rise again.
yeah.
I don't know.
No, guess what? Trump on the freaking Mount Rushmore.
By the way, just ask our
MAGA
audience
Mountain. Mount MAGA.
if they would do a road trip with us.
Who?
Audience.
Yeah, that would
Okay.
be
They
madness.
all meet us there.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd 100% do it. I'd rip my shirt open. I'd make out with people.
Yeah. Me too.
Consensually.
Girl, yeah, I mean, no, obviously they have
Sorry.
to want it. They have to want it. All
could
right,
they- how could they
great
not?
story,
Fun to
Connor.
watch.
So if you like this clip, click right here. And if you want to see more like it, click right here. Stay angry, Patriots.